Welcome to another Sober on a Drunk Planet podcast. And today we have Warren, who has been in the group for probably just over a year now and is 3 years and just under 3 months sober. And the other thing I forgot to ask on air, I think you're around the Kent area. Is that right?
I am, Sean. Yeah, yeah.
I've got a good memory. Like, I'm remembering a lot of
You
stuff.
have. That's quite amazing. Yeah, I'm in Folkestone.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, strangely enough, well, a bit off topic, but we might as well. It's a bit of a ramble. But we went to Folkestone on a holiday last summer, and it was
Right.
this Airbnb van on top of Folkestone, the hill. So you're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
down at Folkestone and everything. Like you can see it up there because it's a metal old American. Um,
Oh, it's an Airstream thing. Is it
that's
called
it, airstrip. Yeah.
Airstream?
And when the sun's shining off it, it's just like a yeah, it's
That's,
just like a
that's
star.
up in the campsite, isn't it?
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really nice.
I
We
know
we went
exactly
around
where.
Folkestone. We had dinner at that fish restaurant by the river, and it was like we were in France. It was amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but anyway, I
Very nice.
sidetracked. So sobriety podcast. Not talk about my times in Folkestone. Um, but we'll get on to all the benefits and stuff later. Like we've highlighted some things that we'll talk about, presumably that we were both similar. We were both in AA for around a year, just over a year, and I think it's important to have a discussion about the pros. I don't think there are any cons. I think the only con is not going to AA and making up your own mind. So we'll just leave it at the pros
Yeah.
because like we've got personal reasons. There's a lot of people in the group that are in there for the same reasons, but ultimately it is one of the greatest programs for sobriety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I owe my life to it. I'm fairly certain of that, and it's I
Yeah,
still
and
send people
I'm
to
the
it.
same as well. So good. So let's hear a little bit more about Warren. What was life like when you were a little kipper, and then just bring it all the way up to that sober tipping point, I guess. What happened 3 years and 3 months ago that made you sort of decide that you needed to give up?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I started with drink and smoking pot very young. I think 12 I was when I first had my first smoke and my first drink. I wouldn't say it became the habit that it did then, but it wasn't irregular. But I when I smoked and when I drank, it was always heavily, even at that young age. And blackout drinking was really the only drinking I did at that age. It carried on really, I didn't go to school much. I was more interested in sitting down the field getting stoned than I was being at school. School didn't work for me at all. So yeah, it kind of carried on. Left school at 16. Got my first job. Um, but yeah, the focus was always alcohol, really. I kind of fell out of love with smoking pot about 17, and I think probably mainly because the drinking was starting to take control over anything else, really. So yeah, I was a chef for 17 years. Um, and chefing is, I blamed chefing for my drinking for quite a long time. I blamed the industry, because of the
It's
chaos and
it's
stuff.
it's funny, like there are a few chefs in the group.
Yes, it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of chefs that I work with over the years who are, some of them have just got sober, but some of them haven't, and some of them are still out there, as we say sometimes. um, yeah, I mean, looking back now, I realise that people with an addictive nature, tendency for alcoholism, are just attracted to it. I think because they're attracted to the chaos. It's easy to jump from one job to another, and there's never a shortage of work, so it's a very easy place for an alcoholic to be. So I mean, really, I just kind of fritted like that. I would say for many years I was on the edge of being a non-functioning alcoholic, but I just kind of held on by the skin of my teeth. Really, I think.
And what
Um,
what 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 did that look like, hanging on by the skin of your teeth, in terms of being a chef? Like,
well,
give us an idea of what that looked like.
I would often Obviously, we spoke about the pot and the drink. Obviously, I worked in London for 10 years. Cocaine obviously reared its head. I would quite often turn up for work the next day with no sleep, really not hanging, still going, and I would not let myself drop beyond that point where I would have started feeling like, like crap. I would just carry on.
Yeah.
I used to go on, 3 or 4 day benders and work through it, but quite often it would lead to me behaving very badly. I never got sacked from a job in the early
So
days.
what? How's this food coming out?
Well, this is the thing. I managed to do it. There was a couple of occasions when it went really bad. There was one occasion in London. I won't name the restaurant, where I was so hammered that in the gap between the two services, I rolled up my apron, put it on the counter, and went to sleep. I was not very popular the next day with the bosses. Let's just say that. But
Yeah, fair enough.
I got in a lot of trouble. I got a lot of warnings, but I think looking back, I was pretty talented with food, and I think that got me through. But I fritted from one job to the next. It's, you hear the term geographical alcoholic a lot. You hear it in AA a lot, and I did that with jobs. I did it with addresses as well. I mean, I probably a bit early to bring this into conversation, but I'm 46 years old and I am now in my 40th address. 40 addresses at the age of 46, and bearing in mind for the first 18 years I'd only had 4, so that's a lot of addresses in past my 18th birthday. So yeah, it's just that's been the cycle, and it was definitely the cycle with work. I would look for fault in things rather than accepting responsibility myself.
Yeah.
It was always everything else's fault.
Poor me, poor me, poor me another drink.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody says shit about me. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
I'll swear away. I swear all the time. Fine.
So yeah, I mean, because I was the cycle would be I would go and get a new job, and it would be, oh yeah, this is great, this is great, this place, and then within 3 months the drinking would start getting heavier again. And then I would start finding fault in stuff. There's not many jobs that I've stuck around in for much more than, hardly any for more than a year, only a handful.
Yeah.
Some of them 3 months, 6 months. I just had enough. I'm famous for some of the chefs that I've worked with a couple of times. They've been stupid enough to have me back. They said, are you going to last any more than 6 months? Oh yeah, this is great, I love this place, and it would just be the same thing over and over again. So yeah, it was, but it was never just me that was behaving badly. This is the thing, and this is the thing about hospitality. You kind of safety in numbers, really.
Yeah.
There was
I
always
guess you to some extent, like I relate. I worked in finance in
yeah,
London. You're
yeah, I
doing a
can imagine.
completely different job, but the pattern of not sleeping for 3 or 4 days, being on it
Yeah,
the whole time, like my job was boring and it was hard to stare at a computer screen when you're dying inside, basically.
yeah, yeah,
But that chaos, and actually, when you said geographical, so anyone who hasn't been to AA or doesn't understand it, is when you leap from one place to another, thinking that's going to save you. And I
yeah,
did exactly the same as you. I went to 3 or 4 jobs, thinking that was going to save me. I said, well, I'll get a new job, I'll get more money, get out of debt, and then I won't be drinking and drugging and all that.
yeah,
And I went to Sydney and I went to South Africa and did the same. And it doesn't matter where you go, you will
no,
find a pub, you will find the dodgiest people who are like-minded, because it's like a
yeah,
trauma bond,
yeah, yeah,
or sort of something
absolutely,
like that, an energy that you're
absolutely.
attracting.
Because you're
Um,
just trying to run away from yourself, basically, effectively, aren't you? And
yeah,
everywhere you go, you're still there.
yeah. I always say, like, Thailand. I think growing up, Thailand was the place that all friends would go to for a gap year, or they
Yeah,
go for
absolutely.
3 months. And Thailand just seems to be the place of the lost souls.
Yeah,
I think you get certain places that people think, oh, I'll go Thailand for a bit,
yeah,
find myself. But all you do is find other people trying to find themselves.
yeah. I went to Thailand. I turned up to a full moon party and I walked down to the beach and everyone's covered in all this, the fluorescent paint. And I'm like, oh, look at all these idiots. And then half an hour later, there's me dancing around covered in fluorescent paint. So yeah, I certainly get that.
Yeah. So then you're flitting around between job to job,
Yeah.
and then how did that progress?
Well, that was really the pattern for a long time. I mean, the benders would get worse and worse, depending on my location. And obviously, in London, there was a lot of cocaine use. Um, but I actually left London itself 3 times. So yeah, I went to London and left 3 times. I lived in Brighton twice. I lived abroad. I lived in 3 different counties, including London, included in that as well. So it was
And
just
and how did that go?
what's that?
Living in different counties and living abroad. Like Brighton and
Well,
London are very similar, to be honest.
they are, yeah, and they're party towns. But and then I moved back to Kent again because my stepdad wasn't well, and I moved back down to be close to my mum. And I got a job, and it was good for a while. Same stuff, you know. And then I started causing chaos, and um, I think things changed a lot for me when it was on the back of I bought a boat to turn into a houseboat, and one thing led to another. It was a horrendous story in the end, and I paid these 2 guys to move it, and they broke her back and they sunk it. This boat is still sitting in the estuary in Sandwich in Kent, and on the back of this, I'd lost my job. I had a relationship breakdown because I'd spent so much time and money on this boat, and my mother had put a lot of money in as well. And in the end, it was what year was it? Must have been 2015. I think I just had enough. I couldn't get another job, and I buggered off to Malta. I had friends out there, so I went to just to go and see if I'd like it. I ended up there 3 years, which is where I met my wife. I mean, this is something that we should probably come into the conversation as well. But I think in Malta, I felt like I was always on holiday. You know, jobs in Malta didn't last any more than 3 months. You know, Malta got hold of me, and my drinking got. Yeah, it was like holiday drinking all the time, you know, for 3 years. So yeah, it got quite bad. I was living on Gozo, the small island, so it was getting around that I was a drinker. You know, it's pretty hard to hide in a small island with only 20,000 residents that actually live on it. You know, so and there's only X amount of restaurant. I did a little bit of restaurant work. I did some private chefing work. I mean, 2 of these events I messed up in such a horrendous way because I was drinking before, during them. Two of them, I just walked off halfway through the night because I was too drunk. You know, just disappeared, left these poor. They'd given me some money to do it, deposit, you know, and I turned up drunk. I think I managed to convince them that I wasn't drunk at the time, and then I just disappeared. Gave them their money back, but I'd messed up their evening, you know. So 3 years in Malta, and then I moved back to Cornwall we moved back and got married. I don't know why she was marrying me. I've got no idea. Yeah, Cornwall was much the same. You know, 3 months I'd last in a job, drinking. I mean, there's a couple of jobs in Cornwall. I turned up for my first day, shaking like a leaf, and I must have been stinking of booze. You know, heavy benders the night before, so it was really getting quite bad. I think then was when COVID kicked in. And so 2020, wasn't it, when the first lockdown happened? And that was the real flipping point for me. Because I had no responsibilities, I was still getting paid, and my drinking just suddenly just turned into all out carnage, really. I would just drink until I passed out, and then I'd wake up and drink until I passed out, and wake up and I'd drink until I passed out, and that was the cycle until I'd drink myself to the point where my body started rejecting it. I would be very ill, you know, I would throw up blood. And then I'd kind of get off it for a few days, and then I would be, you know, but be quite unwell, and then I would eat and sleep for a few days, and then the cycle would just start again. It would start off with a little bit, and then by the end of the week, I was back up to the heavy binging on the spirits again, you know. So yeah, I drank at this point. I drank myself to a fairly hefty suicidal depression. Really, I couldn't see a way out of alcohol at all. I felt completely controlled by it. I couldn't see a way out. But still, I couldn't imagine a life without it, and that was the important thing. I was really stuck in the middle of it. Now, it was at this point where there was some fairly catastrophic stuff went on down in Cornwall, and my wife at the time got diagnosed with cancer. I'd actually managed a period of sobriety of 5 months, and then she got diagnosed with cancer, and I couldn't cope, and I started drinking again. And yeah, she kicked me out, which was totally the right thing to do, looking back. And yeah, I moved out, and I moved in with this guy. It turned out to be a horrendous place to live. There was a lot of drinking and drugs that went on. And it was at that point I moved back to Kent. So I managed little periods of sobriety back in Kent. And then the really, excuse me, then the really destructive drinking started again. And it went on for 6 weeks, the real destructive cycle of making myself really ill. And it was at that point when I was just thinking there's probably only one way out of this, and that's when I decided, well, I might as well go and give AA a go, and that was the 12th of June. I managed 12th of June 2020, or 2021. No, 2020. Yeah, 21. And I managed 3 days of sobriety before I went in. I still felt absolutely rubbish. I had, you know what it's like when you've been on those long benders. You feel terrible for a week, Excuse me. And yes, I went into AA. Didn't really know what to expect. I got very lucky with one of my AA meetings. It's actually the one that I ended up being the secretary of. The group of people that were in that meeting were an exceptional group of people. So many people that I related to, much more than any other meetings that I went to. And that meeting, I say to this day, I owe my life to that meeting. It's a group of people that I really related to, really got on with, formed friendships with them as well, and it was, that was a turning point. And I didn't drink after my first AA meeting. I've not had a drink since that day, and I think you're much the same as that, aren't you? Is that
Yeah, so
right?
I went to rehab, which then incorporated for 28 days. You had to go to an AA meeting every night.
Yeah,
So it was very posh. I was in the Priory in London, and they would have a driver who was in recovery who would drive you to all the local meetings, because there's a meeting on every street corner in London. It's
yeah,
ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
think, oh, is alcohol a problem? Just search local AA meetings, and
yeah, yeah,
your mind is blown that every church you knew is being used as a hall twice a
yeah,
week, for
absolutely.
various anonymous meetings. I did
Yeah,
cocaine anonymous, I did narcotics anonymous,
yeah.
and yeah, like the stuff that I learned there was incredible. Like the 12-step program
The steps is incredible.
was eye opening. Like it taught me a new way of thinking and forgiving myself, and that stayed with me. It shaped the books that I've written as well, because
Yeah, yeah,
it's part of my persona now. I went to AA wanting to get help. I can see when you go to meetings and you speak to certain people, you can tell the addiction has still got a very strong hold and they're not really present.
yeah,
But it's different for everyone. I mean, they're the people that can keep going, relapsing, and then go back, and then they get it at some point. But I think
yeah,
we
yeah.
wanted to highlight how important AA was, and also the other anonymous groups. So I went to Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. I even went to Overeaters Anonymous,
Right.
which tackled a lot of my childhood food addiction, which I never really thought about before I went to rehab and did therapy and looked through the stages leading up to alcohol, because the addiction was there. The emotional regulation was in food rather than talking about stuff. But
Yeah,
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 AA was brilliant. I mean, just to explain to people who are listening, who are thinking AA is not for me, I'm a binge drinker. I'm not a drink alcohol from 7 till 7 every day. That wasn't me. I would go out Wednesday and come back Sunday, maybe Monday, and
yeah,
maybe do 2 or 3 days. But alcohol had such a toxic impact on how I behaved and everything that actually, when I went to my first, I went to Cocaine Anonymous the day before an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and this girl was talking about her experiences doing a chair, like they do at all the type of meetings. Um, and I just instantly thought, I thought I was the only person going through that. But
Mm.
this person's just explained what I've been doing and feeling for the last 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, yeah, like how was that for you when you went? Because obviously you said Folkestone was a really good meeting place.
It wasn't actually Folkestone where I was at AA. It was Canterbury.
Okay.
Yeah, so because Canterbury was my hometown, and it was where I went back to. That's actually where it all started, really, and it's where I where I decided to go to AA. So it was quite funny seeing some old faces as well in the rooms from people I
Full
recognised
circle.
around town, and I was like, "Oh, I recognise you," you know. But yeah, I mean, like I said about that single meeting, there were other meetings that I got benefit from as well, but that one was, yeah, like you say, it was just the identification with people, you know, and people would come in and do the chair. I ended up doing 3 chairs, I think it was, in my time in AA, which were terrifying, I have to say. Really terrifying, but I did them and always felt better afterwards. But every time someone did a chair, and there was a chair at every meeting that I went to, because some of them are structured a bit differently. I think I got a little bit of identification from all of them, you know, a little bit, but some of them I was like, well, that's just me, you know, and then you just get a chance to talk about it afterwards, wouldn't you? And you'd have some time to discuss what had been said, and there was a lot of extra fellowship as well. So we'd always meet beforehand, and we'd go for a coffee, and then we'd go and have a chat afterwards as well on that meeting. It turned into about a 3.5 hour event, the meeting that was.
And it's I think it's really important to highlight that I did that. So we would go out for dinner beforehand and do meetups, and some went to conventions and stuff. But I think when alcohol's been your only source of dealing with life, to then
Yeah,
have that safe environment where you felt comfortable talking about sobriety with a group of people that have been through it. So, like that
this
group
is
of
it.
people, you said there's years of experience of
Mm.
being sober. And did you get a sponsor as well?
I did, yeah. I'm still in regular contact with him as well. He's no longer in AA now either. Actually, he was in for 5 years. He's actually found God now, and he's
Where is he?
what's that?
Where is he? Did he tell you where he was?
Yeah, he hasn't gone anywhere. He's still about. He's just decided church is his
Yeah.
place to go now.
It's strange, actually. You know what? I actually had a thought. Like, I was brought up a Roman Catholic Italian family. I was forced to go to church because you had to go to church to get into the school.
Mm,
But by the time we were 14, we were all hungover and we never went on a Sunday.
yeah,
But like, I believe in the higher power stuff. I believe in my God is like I think they said good, orderly direction.
good
Um,
orderly design was
yeah. So
what
I put
I
things
heard
up to
about.
the universe, and I believe in energy. And
Yeah, yeah.
beyond that, it's not any scientific or hippie shit. It's just
No, same. I'm the same as nature for me, you know,
yeah.
and I think it's I think one of the for me one of the most important things about getting and staying sober is to reconnect a bit with nature, you know, and you've got to disengage a little bit from the world, because the world can be a bit of a mess, you know. It's a crazy world, and I think the only way to really disconnect from it, disengage, and learn to relax properly is to reconnect with nature a little bit.
And we'll get onto that in a minute, but I will
Yeah,
just highlight. I think we'll both share. You go first, but why did you leave AA? And again, this isn't this is a personal decision. It's not
yeah.
us saying negative things, but
No, no, no.
it's important for people to understand
Yeah.
why.
Well, I think it's important that I start that by saying I would still recommend anyone to go to it, you know, because it saved my life 100%. I don't think I'd still be here if I hadn't gone to AA. I'm fairly certain of that. But I started to just disagree with a little bit too much of it, you know. There are things, um, a lot of the people, possibly some of the more insular members, I would say, and they're a bit too keen to share their opinion of what an alcoholic is, you know, and I think that the alcoholic is a very broad term, and it's got many different levels. So that was one thing. The other thing was, yes, I selected nature as my higher power because nature has always been important to me. Even when I was, you know, in the deepest, darkest benders, I think I still had a bit of a connection to it. But I didn't really think that nature cares enough about me to help me solve my problems. I think that's got to come from me, you know. So that side of it, I think that started to wear a little on the thin side for me. And was there anything else other than that? I see, not really. I think that was enough. I think also, when I went into AA, I always said I'm not going to be one of these people that's going to stick around and do this for years and years to come. You know, this is something that I think maybe AA should be a thing that rotates and evolves. You know.
Do you ever get AA guilt?
No, I don't. No, what, for leaving? You mean?
Yeah,
No, and this is something that I know that the more insular people will, you know, that they would probably, oh, he's left, he's going to relapse, that sort of thing, you know.
yeah.
And there are other ways to stay sober without continuing standards. And I'm a firm believer that you can still practice AA and practice the steps without going to the meetings as well. You know, you can still do your step 12 work, which I do. I still practice my step 1 daily. Step 10s I do continuously, you know. I should explain what they are really. So step 1 is the, you know, you are acknowledging that you're powerless over alcohol. The step 10 is the constant checking up on yourself, checking in on your behavior, because the behavior is the first thing to go generally with most relapses. You know, you're not doing your daily routines, your gratitude practicing, things like that. If you fall out of habit with those, that's when I firmly believe that relapse is a real danger. You know, you got to keep on top of yourself. And the step 12 is to help other people to get sober, and there's no shortage of those. You know, there's no shortage of people that I've been
Yeah.
approached by many people. I've helped probably 4 people now, I think, to sustain past their first year of sobriety, which it may only be a drop in the ocean, but it's a difference, you know. And the thing is with that as well is, as we all know, when one person gets sober, so many other people's life improves, you know, family, I
But
know.
this is exactly why we're doing this, because just like I went to the Cocaine Anonymous and that girl sharing her story made me realize I wasn't alone. That's
Mm,
then what gave me the confidence to then write books and do these
mm,
podcasts and ask you to come on and share your experience. And it's funny, like the modern world's changed a bit. So things like YouTube and Spotify, which this is on, then become a lot easier for people to access.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then they don't have to buy into a program or anything because it's just the community, the books, and listening to this. Really.
Yes. And this goes back to the AA thing as well, because I think one of the key things that really works for AA is the fellowship, you know, and it's getting to talk to people and spend time with people that have struggled or are struggling or are new to it, and it's a community, isn't it? And and this is exactly where your Facebook group comes into its own, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
kind of
it's nice because like I needed to stay sober, and all those
mm,
teachings from AA I haven't forgotten about. I don't want to take my eye
no,
off the ball. I don't do gratitude every day like I used to with a sponsor, but if there's something that triggers me, like I bitch or moan about something, that is my trigger to be grateful for what I've got, because that's the old
absolutely,
character defects coming in. And
yeah, yeah,
I think that's where the AA program is really good at just self-awareness. Like by the
yeah.
end of it, I had um, call it my spiritual awakening. I still find it a bit odd saying that because in the back of my head, I feel like people are going to laugh at me, but you sort of get it. Like when you speak to like-minded people, you have all these light bulb moments, and then suddenly there's just this weight off your shoulders, and you're
Mm,
like, oh, wow, that was deep. Um, and I think just sharing on the reasons why I left AA, I've always struggled with it in groups.
Yeah, well, yeah, me too. Actually, that's
I've found out when you take alcohol away, I'm very much an introvert. I love
same.
I love being out in nature. We'll come on to the nature thing in a minute because I think we're quite similar, but for different things that we do. But then there are egos in any group or community that you go to, and I felt some were run a bit like prison hierarchies, and I felt a bit triggered, um, because it was constantly reminding me about the life that I wanted to lead. Now, there felt like it was better balance. That's why I set up Sober Golf Society, to sort of try and create a group into an interest that something did. And then, however things turned out, then we've got Sober on the Drunk Planet Facebook group and the books, and that's where I now feel comfortable. Like, I think my piece of advice to anyone is just keep going to different groups, whether it's social sober meetups, AA, smart meeting recovery sessions as well, and just keep going until something works and you find the right group. Because I feel like I'm very much an introvert when alcohol's taken away. I love talking to people one-on-one, small groups, but the big group thing was just like, nah, too much childhood trauma of being bullied, which I've worked through, and I'm comfortable in groups. Like, I'm not going to suddenly start crying and curling up like a ball, but I just know where my energy's better. So it's all
Yeah.
and stuff. Um,
It's really interesting to hear you say all that, because it's exactly, you just described me, as well. It's I'm an introvert now. I didn't realize it back in the day but maybe I was drinking because I didn't feel comfortable in these situations. I didn't realize it at all, but now I really realize, looking back, that's
and
probably a
I think
reason.
it's a common theme. So a lot of quiet people that would never say boo to a goose in the office or in the kitchens or at the restaurant or whatever, once they've had a half a sip of alcohol, then they're like a wild child.
Yeah.
And that's basically us. But yeah, I think that the overriding piece of advice is AA has stayed with me. That 12-step program and the sponsors, although you will never always get on with your sponsor or think they're the right ones, I just made a promise that I would just go. My head was
Yeah.
screaming, "Don't go! You're not like these people." But I went and I
Yeah.
enjoyed it towards the end, and then I just naturally felt a point where I felt comfortable in my sobriety, and I wasn't comparing myself to them. I just didn't feel comfortable in that environment.
No. Yeah, and I think that's also a lot of it is dropping our own ego as well, isn't it? And it's you've got to look at when you're at a point with your drinking, no matter what kind of drinker you are, that you're unhappy with, uncomfortable with, you've got to do something about it. You've got to look at your alternatives. And if you haven't got any alternatives, if you've tried everything else, you've tried other things and nothing seems to work, then what is the harm in giving it a go? And if you're going to go in and go to the meetings, give it your all. You do the steps and do them properly and do them thoroughly, because there's no point in not trying, is there? And this is where I found I was, and I just went in and I just threw myself at it, because I didn't have any alternatives. I felt that I was really at the end of a crossroads that just didn't have any other direction to go in. So
it's important to understand as well that there isn't really anything like AA now. From a professional level, doing the counselling, I think on a one-to-one basis with a decent counsellor, you will get a lot deeper and be able to unravel a lot more questions in a one-to-one session, or even like a small group therapy-based thing with a professional therapist who is done hours and hours of work with like-minded people. But most people can't afford it,
no.
and access to it. NHS these days isn't brilliant, so you're on a waiting list. So AA is really the only other alternative, along with smart recovery as well, which isn't religious based; it's CBT based, and that has equally as good results.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that would attend AA at that stage in their life, I mean, like you say, they're not going to be able to afford it, because normally when you're at that stage and you're drinking, financially you are, you're in a bit of a state, aren't you? And it's definitely but I mean, with the regards to the counselling thing, I did try counselling early sobriety days, and I didn't get anything from it. Maybe the counsellor wasn't good. But I started on a recent stint again of late. I've been seeing him 6 months now, and I've got so much from this time. You know, it's I think
and
I'm
and,
just
and
ready.
that's and that's a good thing to highlight because I dip in and out. So therapy for me, like just because you're qualified in something doesn't mean you can figure your own head out all the time. So I
No,
still go and see a therapist if things are just eating away at me and I can't find a way, because internalizing is my problem. As a kid, I've always
yeah,
internalized everything.
yeah, yeah,
As much as I'm more conscious of it, sometimes that just builds up. Sometimes people just say you're a bloke, but that is
yeah.
part of the problem, isn't it? Going to
Yeah.
drink and
Well,
forget
it's
about
just
it.
the saying, isn't it? You just got to get on with it, haven't you? Like, get on with what?
Yeah, and you know what? Like, there's a reason why male suicide rates are so. I
Yeah,
think I was watching
absolutely.
a Stephen Bartlett clip on Facebook earlier, and it was like 47% of male deaths under 45 are suicides or something. And it,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is because there is an inability to understand emotions and how to regulate them without doing destructive things like drinking and drugs.
yeah, absolutely.
That's all a generational thing. Let's just go to the pub and let's be men about it. It's bullshit, to be honest.
Yeah, I call it masculine bravado. You know, that's what I talk about a lot, and it has got better, I have to say. But maybe that's just got better for my generation, my group. But maybe it's not any better for the younger men. You know.
Yeah, I think it's almost, yeah, you're right. I think it has got better talking about stuff. And then I
Mm,
think younger generations, it's what they do. They just talk about everything. Uh,
does seem to be better. Yeah.
so just to give us some context, how have you found doing counselling now? What benefits of it are you seeing?
Well, there's certain things that I mean, so when I started the counselling before, I hadn't even worked my way through the steps properly yet. So I hadn't done my step 4 and 5, which I think that's been hugely important for me to really look at every part of my life. And you know, when you go through and you list everyone you've met and people you've had resentments against,
Yeah,
uh, and I think that really highlighted a lot for me. And I think what counselling has really helped me with, really, I'm just one thing I haven't touched on, is that my dysfunctional relationship with my father. Well, actually, it's not really fair to call it a dysfunctional relationship. I had a dysfunctional father. You know, he was not. He had his own problems. He was a drinker as well. He had mental health issues, and I spent my life trying to protect him. You know, and what my counsellor has. He died was 16 years ago now, but cirrhosis of the liver. What my counsellor has really helped me to, along with, is allowing myself to be angry at him, you know, because it's a process that you've got to go through to forgive someone. Is you've got to be angry with them first, and if you don't let yourself be angry with someone, then you're never going to be able to forgive them properly. You just spend your life trying to protect them, and that's what I have learned. One of the key things that I've learned. There's other things that I've learned through some of the things that I really struggle with. Um, not so much now since counselling is I used to get a lot of anxiety at night. I still get it sometimes, nighttime anxiety. I'll just worry about stuff. I'll wake up in the night and that's it. I'll worry about the most ridiculous things, you know.
yeah,
Uh, and he's given me some tools that have helped me deal with that, you know. I think we've still got a lot of work to do, me and him together, but I feel that I am making notable changes, you know. And I can feel a bit of a difference in myself, you know, and I think that's the key, isn't it? And that's what you want. That's what you want to find, and you want
yeah. I think from what you just said, you've obviously internalized that anger. I think
absolutely, yeah,
I think we're brought up never being able to say anything bad about our parents. I
yeah,
think that's just a sort of societal thing. And then obviously him being was he an alcoholic?
yeah. He was very different alcoholic to me, but yeah, he was. I would say still an alcoholic. Yeah,
Yeah, so there's that whole children of alcoholics
yeah,
program as well because they're
yeah,
character defects that you're brought up into.
yeah.
Um, and that has, yeah, like you said, going to counselling now and figuring all that out. and being
Yeah,
able
this,
to heal from it is just really good self growth and make your life
yeah,
easier.
and it's dealing with any trauma that you've kind of built up through your life, and you're bottling up as well. And obviously, being the son of an alcoholic, there was some pretty horrendous things happen at home, and dealing with those has definitely been helpful as well, And it's yeah, I mean, it's huge. How helpful it's been to me, actually, the whole counselling journey this time. It's inspired me, as to do a counselling course myself. I've finished my level 3 diploma now in counselling skills. I'm still
Oh,
not
nice.
sure exactly what I'm going to do with it, but it's it's just nice to have a qualification under my belt, because I've never had one before. So
No, I don't. Yeah, it's a really good, because that's the qualification that I did.
Mm,
I think the majority of people do a level 4 where there's,
yeah, that's right.
but I think if you've got a certain set of skills and you've had that certain set of experience, then do the level 3 and just start helping people. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's good because then you learn how to talk to people. It's not. That's what I
yeah,
found. The problem with sponsors in the past is that they would talk to you from an egocentric mindset of,
absolutely.
"This is
Yeah.
how I live. This is what I've done. Live like me, and you'll be sober."
Yeah, there's no
Doesn't
empathy,
always.
is there? There's no empathy.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah, it's kind of that is, I definitely feel that since doing the course, it has highlighted that some of the relationships in AA aren't probably quite as fruitful as they could be, But I highlight AA when I say that, that's probably not fair. I think that's probably across the board, isn't it?
everywhere. I mean, everyone's fucked up to some extent.
Yeah,
Uh, so we'll move on to let's move on to fishing. Let's
yeah,
just get
okay.
on to fishing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, fishing for me is, I say I owe my life to AA. I think AA and fishing. I don't know where I'd be without fishing either. I go fishing. I try to go at least once a week, at least once a month, for a 2 to 3 day fishing trip with my friend Chris. Um, it's so important to me. It's just back to that, getting back to nature, and forgetting that the world exists, really, and I just sit there and it's me looking out to the water, and that's it. It's meditation, it's that single-minded focus, and it's just helps me just get away from everything, really. And it's yeah, hugely important to me, as I know it is to you with your golf, and it's probably exactly the same thing, isn't it? It's
yeah, I mean, golf is slightly more potential to get angry, but you're right. Like I find my energy levels being outdoors, playing a competitive sport. It just ticks all the boxes for my addictive head because you'll never get your head around it.
yeah,
And it's just peaceful. Like being out when I've been abroad playing golf, I just sit there, watch nature, and I appreciate the small. Well, they're not small things. Like nature's a beast, but
yeah, yeah,
compared to how my mindset used to be, I would just play golf, get drunk, order drugs in, go on a bender for 3 days, and
yeah,
within
same as me
that,
with fishing.
within that, I would never be present for anything. But now I can sit there, I play my round of golf, I appreciate the different birds, and there was a cat the other day when I was practicing on one of the holes, chasing the golf balls that I was hitting. Uh, just things like that. That's how I feel good about myself.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it sounded like the same thing with you and fishing. I know from a lot of friends at the golf club who fish as well. It is very therapeutic. They live stressful
yeah,
lives. They drink. They're heavy drinkers, non-heavy drinkers. I'm not here to discuss that, but it
yeah,
just
yeah.
shows it's such a good outlet for people.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I spend as much of my free time doing it as possible, and it's yeah, as I say, it's just a lifeline for me. It's just a yeah, total relaxation, and yeah, just the focus, just focus on something. It's quite interesting, actually. I remember the first time that I went fishing in sobriety. It was quite early on, so I would have been probably about 6 weeks into my sobriety, and I'd been fishing for about 4 or 5 hours. It was about lunchtime, and I just couldn't shake this feeling all day that I'd just forgotten something. I was like, I know I've forgotten like a bit of equipment or something, or I just couldn't work it out. And you know what it was? I worked it out about midday. I ain't got any alcohol, and I didn't even notice that I didn't have it. You know, it was still something in the back of my head going, "You haven't got it, you haven't got it." You know, which just
So
shows that when you're doing something like that, you don't really need it, do you? And it's,
yeah, people always ask me whether my golf improved since I stopped drinking, and I'd never drink before I play golf, so it doesn't really make much difference. But have you caught more fish since you got sober?
yeah, I'm much more focused on it now. I mean, I just used to, I did used to drink when fishing, and everything else I've taken. You know, I used to go night fishing, and I used to take a bag of coke with me, and I was just, you know, it wasn't about fishing at all. I wasn't getting any benefit from it at all. Yeah, I used to drink to blackout fishing sometimes. You know, yeah, it's completely futile, completely pointless. It was no, yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely a better fisherman now. I'm better at finding the fish. I've got more patience. I've learned a lot more about the hobby, about the sport. Yeah, it's I get so much from it now, whereas before I didn't really get anything from it. I think I was just living on the passion that I had for it when I was young, you know, because it was huge for me when I was a kid. And then obviously the drinking and the drugs took over. So
It's good, isn't it? It's like I feel with golf that um, I'm now reconnecting with what my childhood dream was. Is trying to attempt to turn pro because I can enjoy it and do all the things that I found boring when I was younger. And
yeah,
it sounds similar to you with the fishing. Like you get to reconnect with things that you were never drinking before we got older. Or 14, 15 is not really old, is it? But yeah, it's that whole thing of just being more childlike.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a reconnection with my inner child. Yeah, definitely 100%. It's you know, I think I do feel like a bit of a kid when I'm fishing, because it's just the responsibility just disappears from your life, and it's just suddenly you just got nothing to do but just be, you know.
Yeah, I do have to ask because you mentioned about your career before drinking. How's that panned out since you stopped drinking?
Mhm. What's the sorry, you broke up a bit there for some
So
reason.
how's your career when you were drinking compared to your career post drinking? Just because you'd mentioned
Well,
you'd had a lot of jobs.
yeah, I don't chef anymore. I haven't chefed for some time. I think last proper full time interaction I had in any kitchen at all was about 8 years ago. I did a private chefing in Malta, so that was way before I got sober. I did a private chefing in Malta. I've been building since, you know. At the moment, I make just about enough money. You know, I'm relatively comfortable, and I do a bit of handyman stuff. Yeah, so that's what I call myself, a handyman.
Nice.
Um,
Did you find it easier? It sounds an obvious question, but just to give people the
uh, well, it's because we were talking about being an introvert, you know, earlier, which I definitely am. I just work by myself, so yes, definitely easier.
yeah. But that's a good thing though, isn't it?
I
Like
don't have to worry about, you know, when I was chefing, I think probably it was an ego thing. I wanted to be the top dog, and I probably became head chef way too young. I should have gone and worked for some big names and some good people, learn a bit more, you know. But I was like, no, I can do this. And, you know, I did a relatively good job when I wasn't smashed out of my head. Um, but yeah, I think. I just haven't got anything to worry about. So I always had all my rotas to do and my staff to worry about and discipline and all that. So it was, you know, it was pretty stressful. And now I just don't have to worry about any of that. I just go to
and
work.
and that's understanding your strengths in sobriety. You understand what makes you tick. And you know what? Like the thing I don't understand, I speak to everybody who's in a position where they have to manage someone and they hate
Mm,
it. They hate it. I have not met one manager in whatever industry who says, because I play a lot of golf with people, they all
mm,
do different jobs. they're all like, yeah, the job changes when you have to manage people because people are
Mm.
all crazy, all in their own little ways. And I'm like,
People are difficult. Yeah.
so sobriety taught me to find less stress. So
Yeah.
I do
Absolutely.
think I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I think we sound similar. Like
Mm.
I won't rely on people. I make sure that I can get things done and I'll put the energy in. But I'm not going to put myself into jobs or positions that make me feel uncomfortable or too
No.
stressful. So I don't want to
Yeah. Yeah.
hire. I don't want to hire anyone. I use freelancers for designs and stuff, but um, I just, yeah, I just don't want the added stress. Like life's
Yeah.
too short.
I made that mistake early recovery. I made the mistake of throwing myself into things that were a bit far outside my comfort zone, and it didn't make me feel good. You know, it made me feel twitchy, nervous, anxious, and that's a dangerous path to be on for a newly recovering alcoholic, isn't it? You're
Yeah,
best off just keeping yourself maintained at a fairly peaceful level. I think there's
yeah,
no harm in it. I think probably one downfall that I do have in my recovery is that I haven't put myself out there enough in social situations. Maybe I could try to build up a bit more resilience to it because at some point the time will come where I will have to do it. I'll have to maybe go to a wedding or a funeral and I won't be ready. And I've thought about that a few times of late, and I'm just like, I'll deal with it when it happens.
it's a good point to bring up because I have the same conversation with myself. My missus, she's been sober for 5.5 years, and
Yeah.
we're both introverts, which we sometimes question: is it dangerous? Both introverts, both
Mm,
like each other's company and being at home. Like we really love being at home.
that's nice.
Um, And it is nice, but then there's always that question of because we're
Mm,
always told that we're social animals and we need to socialize. And I'm like, no, I'm
yeah.
not going to sit here, waste energy worrying about whether I need to go out and socialize more. I play golf, is social. I go to the gym. I enjoy doing what I do. The Facebook group's brilliant because that is a level of socializing. It's online. Um, yeah, so I feel like sometimes we might just not have to push ourselves when we really don't. But yeah,
Yeah.
I get your point. Am I getting more anxious and socially awkward? Not really. I just know what makes me tick better. I think that
Yeah. I think I've kind of settled at that point now, and I'm just thinking, is it really worth putting myself into situations that I'm just not going to be that particularly comfortable with? Just preparing myself for another situation that I'm not going to be very comfortable with either. I just,
I mean, you've just sort of done self therapy there. I mean, that would be the light bulb moment. Why do something if I don't really want to do it and I don't
yeah,
have to do it?
yeah, yeah,
Don't do it.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy where I am. I'm just ticking. Like I do socialise. I've got a few people that I meet up with. I've got my fishing partner, Chris, and sometimes his girlfriend comes along. We talk. We talk a lot. I've got friends. Some of my old friend group that I still meet up with. Not many, I have to say. Some of them I would like to see. I think, but some of them um, not so much. In all honesty. But yeah, I've got my ex-girlfriend who we split up last year. We're still very good friends, and we meet up regularly and socialise and talk. And I think the key thing that I've really noticed is I only really like to spend time with people that are actually really comfortable, properly talking now.
Yeah,
Um,
deeper conversations
yeah,
because
talking
it's not.
openly and honestly rather than just having just drunk bravado. Because I spent 30 years just talking shit, really.
Same. I mean, if we ever met each other, we would have been at 6 a.m. at someone's random kitchen table doing coke, probably.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and just talking absolute rubbish.
Pretty much. I always found when I was drinking, I was always it was a way to bitch and moan about my unhappiness, but it was
Mm,
generally filtered towards other people, places, and things rather than ever taking ownership for any of my own unhappiness. I was
yeah,
a bit of a victim when I was drinking. Um,
I think a lot of people are, aren't they? Just feeling sorry for themselves, really, and um, and I think that's it's actually that kind of brings us back to the AA conversation as well, isn't it? Because I think another really important part of AA for me, early days, was the Serenity Prayer, and that is I use that a lot, you know,
Yeah,
and
I,
it's
I,
about
I
not
still use
getting.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's about not getting weighed down, isn't it, by things that you have no power over, and just trying to focus on improving stuff within your bubble, and because that's all you can do, isn't it? You can improve your stuff in your
Yeah,
proximity, and that's it. And obviously, the biggest key thing is to get the drinking under control. But other things have to change before that happens. Generally, it's just trying to stop the drink without changing other things is tricky, isn't it? You know, it's
yeah. You end up being a dry drunk, so you've got
yeah,
all the obnoxious behaviours of a drunk, but
yeah.
you're sober. So you might then turn into one of those really annoying sober people who is just the loudest sober person in the world, and that's all they talk about, and that's all they do. I mean, just get a balance. I mean, nobody nobody really cares.
No.
I mean, it sounds odd me saying that, but I think being an introvert, I always shy away from extroverted people. So there's
Yeah,
people in the sober community that I just think stop banging on about sobriety. Just live your life and stay
yeah, yeah.
sober and promote it. But I've got to realise not everyone's like me, and that's fine.
No, no, they're not. No, there's a few. There's one particular famous um,
We won't name
variety
anyone.
icon.
Let's not name anyone.
No,
Um,
I'm not. No, I'm not going to give his
but
name. But
I think we'll end just to wrap up. Thank you very much for coming on. Like,
thanks
it's
for having me.
I get so much out of these because it feels very
Yeah,
familiar,
yeah. It's
and
almost
it's a
like
good.
a little AA meeting and share, isn't it? You know, it's
Well, it is. I won't call it that because I haven't
no.
taken it from that. All this is a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Stop any
I
of
haven't
the
sat down and talked about things in depth for a very long time. You know, I talk about bits and bobs with people here and there, right, recovery people, little bits, but I haven't actually sat and discussed my
and
story for
it's good
some
because it
time.
doesn't matter if you're 1 day or 20 years sober. Like, alcohol is everywhere, drugs are now everywhere. I mean, to get
Yeah.
complacent and then slip is not a good thing. So
No,
having these reminders and chatting about it
no,
from time to time is a good reminder.
no, no, and I think that's an important thing to say. Actually, is I mean, my relationship with alcohol now is I hate the stuff. I hate everything about it. I hate the fact that it's advertised everywhere. I can't stand it. But I still know that I'm not safe from it. You know, if I my concentration lapses too much and I get out of doing my the things that I need to stay sober, and I pick up a drink, my life is completely and utterly fucked in a week. You know, literally done. You know. Um,
I agree. Because yeah,
so
it will always take you straight back to that point where you
yeah,
stop.
worse. I found that every time I relapsed, it got worse. You know, my drinking would just take on a new level of of ferociousness. You know, so yeah, this is not something that I want to entertain. That's for sure.
And yeah, I think that people get a lot from this podcast as well. So thanks very much for sharing everything. And yeah,
Thanks for having me.
you're
It's a pleasure and an honour, I have to say.
no, it's great. Like, we've been chatting on and off for a year and a bit, and
Mm,
like, it's really nice to get to know people within the group as well. Um, but yeah, just to sort of wrap up, I guess, if in doubt, go to AA,
mm.
because it's a you thing. It's not what I say about AA. It's not about what you say. It's
No,
not about what someone who's been in AA for 400 years says. It's
no,
you have a problem. You need to sort it out. You do
yeah.
whatever you can to get sober. And
I
AA
think
is a brilliant
it
program.
is. It is a great program, and it's got a stigma about it, hasn't it? But it's I don't think it's really justified. And
And
there's
I
no harm
think
in trying it.
these conversations are good because look, we're not in AA anymore. I do
Mm,
holistic recovery through the books and what I try and promote within the group, which doesn't involve going to AA if you don't want to. But the one thing that I've always said in the group is that I won't sit there and let people come in and whine and say they're a victim of this or that, because ultimately we all have to take ownership
mm,
of our own sobriety, and that comes in the form of taking actions.
yeah,
And if you don't go to A, you don't go to SMART, and you're finding faults in everything, then you're just going to carry on drinking. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
of
the hard
course.
truth of it. But yeah, thanks very much, Warren. We'll get you back on in
Thanks.
6 months' time. We'll do another one. And yeah, cool. That ends another show.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate
Cheers.
it.